welcome to Hacktics and Telemetry. This is episode 10, a Rapid7 produced podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Douglas McKee, and I'm joined by the one and only CryptoCat. And CryptoCat has been on a bit of hiatus, so welcome back, my friend. It's always good to have you. Of course, Jacob stepped in, did a fantastic job. But tell our viewers a little bit about your vacation.
I was in Thailand. I don't know how many times I've been to Thailand at this stage, but quite a lot over the last 15 or 20 years. So much so I'm going to have to pick a new destination soon because, I think I've done it too many times. Very nice weather. There's nothing wrong with that. If you enjoy it, why not keep going back, man? That's it. I know. And I haven't been to Laos yet, so I mean, maybe I do need to get back to Southeast Asia again.
Well, maybe. I mean, I'm jealous, but I'd love to go with you sometime. I've never been to Thailand, and it's on my bucket list of places to go. So maybe here's an idea. Eventually, we should do a Hacktics and Telemetry from Thailand. That would be a lot of fun. In person, on site. We should definitely
I didn't do too many hacker meetups this time. Normally, I like meet up with quite a few people around Thailand, and especially Malaysia as well has a really big hacker community. But I was with my family this time, like my uncle and his wife and young kids and stuff. So less hacker meetups than usual. But I did meet up with ByteHex. We went and had dinner a few days ago. So catching up on all his bug bounty stories and stuff was cool.
Look at this guy just name dropping, even on vacation. Always meeting with the coolest hackers out there. That's fantastic, man. Well, hey, if you have not joined our podcast before, welcome. We are happy to have you. We have a standard format here where first we go into what's called the Situation Room. And in there, we will talk about the latest and greatest news stories that have happened since the last time we had an episode. And there's always a decent amount to talk about. We'll do a nice deep dive there. And then we move into the War Room. That's our guest segment for the podcast. And we've got a special guest for you like always. But this week, it is Cory Clark. He is the VP of Threat Operations over at SonicWall and a good friend of mine. And he's been doing blue team stuff for a very long time. So I'm always excited to hear what his perspective is on the latest attacks. And we might even talk a little bit about AI, because why not, right? That's what we do on this podcast. And then last, but certainly not least, arguably the most important, we will move into the Mitigation Minute, where we will talk about not problems, but we'll review a little bit of what we went through out in the podcast and come and talk about what we believe are some tips for your organization to deal with the latest and greatest news. And speaking of the latest and greatest news, has anything caught your attention, CryptoCat, before moving to the Situation Room that's been happening lately?
I'll be honest, I probably missed quite a lot of news over the past couple of weeks because I did try to take a bit of a break. But when I got back, I did notice that NPM or GitHub have basically changed the NPM policy. So I think rolling out as of next month, they start to roll it on a trial basis. They're going to allow scripts to off by default, allow Git will be off, and various changes which are just basically supposed to provide some hardening around the supply chain attacks that's been happening.
This is in response to all the NPM supply chain attacks, right?
Exactly. But I saw one, Doug, on your Monday Brief newsletter, which happened recently, which wouldn't have been stopped by these changes.
Yeah, the wallet stealer. Yeah, that was a really interesting NPM attack. One of the things that I thought was intriguing about that is we didn't have to, or I'm not we. Well, look, I'm the one that did the attack. That's not what I'm trying to let out of the closet here. But one of the things I find interesting about that attack is there was no fake package involved. This was a legitimate real package takeover. And if it's going to be a legitimate package, you don't have to convince somebody to install it. And as you said, a lot of these protections are not going to apply. So, but this is the cat and mouse game. Hey, you missed it, but I hope you caught up and watched the episode. We had Ishmael Venezuela on last time, and he talked about the whole cat and mouse game between attackers and red teamers, and this is just part of it, right? Protection it's good in some instances, but there's always going to be way to get around it. Talked a little bit about time-based security. But anyway, let's not get too far off track. Please, if you enjoy this podcast, please like and subscribe. That helps us out a lot. Drop some comments in the comment section. Let us know maybe a topic you want us to talk about next time. Maybe something you don't want us to talk about again, and we will take those comments to heart. But with that, are you ready to move to the Situation Room?
Yep, let's go.
All right, here we go. All right, here we are. Welcome to the Situation Room, where we talk about some of the latest and greatest news. CryptoCat is always our tour guide, so go ahead, CryptoCat. What do we got this week?
All right, not too much this week, but I did find a recent attack against some WordPress plugins, which I'm always a big fan of. I like hunting on WordPress plugins because...
Really? You know, I don't know. I get sick of WordPress plugins, man. I feel like there is a new WordPress vulnerability every 10 minutes in this industry.
No, okay. I'm a fan of them because I like to do bug bounty on the side, and it's very rare that like bug bounty programs just have the source code available. So if you want to use AI to automate finding some of these vulnerabilities, that's a good way to do it. Anyway, away from my bug bounty, this is the article I saw. So they were actually targeting various different types of plugins. It reminded me a bit of like the old exploit kits of the day. Where, you know, they've actually got, I think there's a screenshot somewhere where they have like a panel, you know, with like the campaign, and it's showing like what they've got access to and stuff like that. And they were basically selling access to these servers that they were getting the backdoors in. So there's 27 known flaws in it. And it said a handful did most of the work, and they fired it at more than 45,000 targets and backdoored over 17,000 of them. So
that's quite a few.
Yeah. I think there was also, so there's WordPress, there's also some Joomla sites in there as well. There was a list of nearly 600,000 Joomla targets. And what I thought was funny about this one as well is how it was actually discovered. So I can't remember exactly where it is, but I believe the attacker left open one of their servers. Yeah, they had a simple Python web server that they set up to move some files, and they just left it open for 22 days without any authentication. So some researchers stumbled upon it and just got access to everything, yeah.
That's classic hacker laziness, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't need to secure my stuff. I'm trying to hack other things.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it goes to show you. So
I was looking for something. I can't find it, but there was another piece of malware that recently came out that had like the old exploit kit style. And your picture made me think of it, but I can't find it fast enough here in real time. I can't remember what it was called, but anyway, keep going.
The exploit kits pretty much died. It was funny, actually. I started my PhD research on exploit kits, and around the same time, you just started having all these articles coming out, like, where have all the exploits kits gone? And, you know, it's just like suddenly they've been so active for the past like 10, 15 years. And then there was just like a few reasons at the same time, like browser hardening and things like that. But also like a lot of the big like operators getting arrested and big, you know, prison sentences and stuff where it just dropped off. And I think it kind of got taken over by cryptocurrency mining at the time.
Yeah, this was more based on like a piece of malware that could be converted from like being a stealth to like ransomware to like data exfiltration. And they had built in different capabilities, and they were saying that it made it harder for defenders because typically defenders profile something that they discovered during a threat hunt, and they have a playbook that's attached to a certain type of threat that's discovered, right? So there might be a playbook for ransomware, and then there might be a playbook for, playbook for like data exfiltration or something like that. And they're different. And so like, a defender runs that playbook thinking, okay, we've solved the problem, but really the attacker has just changed over to a different style, and then it's not detected the same. I wish I could find the article, but anyway, I completely derailed us there, but from WordPress plugins. But that's what I was thinking about when you showed like the exploit style stuff. And I think like sometimes it's crazy to me, man. Like I swear cybersecurity is like fashion, and I don't claim to be any fashion expert at all. Like just ask my wife. I don't know how to dress myself to look good. So it's pretty ridiculous. But what they say in fashion, right, is like things come back every so many years, whatever it is. Like what was in the 70s came back in the 2000s, like all that stuff. I feel like sometimes in cybersecurity we have the same thing, because I was reading that article being like, this isn't new, man. Like we've had module malware for like 3 decades, right? But
true. I see that even with vulnerabilities, right? There's been vulnerabilities, and I can't remember if it was in like a vulnerability research context or bug bounty context, but I remember seeing stuff, and it's like these tips. It's like, oh, this new technique that I've discovered, and then somebody be like, oh, there's like this article from like 1998 where that was used. You know,
part of it, I suppose, is like there's the new researchers doing the research are younger and don't necessarily always know of the context. So, I mean, I suppose that's probably part of it.
I have an interesting WordPress one. I've not actually released a write-up yet, but just before I show you another write-up which I made, I'll give you a quick intro. I might have told you about this one already, Doug. The CVE's already been published and stuff, but it was a WordPress plugin where basically you could create like a login form or a password reset form, and you could put in like the email address of whoever's password you want to reset. The email just goes to that email address, right? You put in their email. But if you put in a new line and then put your email address below their email address, it would inject that into the email header. So it would actually become the BCC. So it would send the password reset request, the email, to the attacker silently. The victim sees the request. Yeah, because BCC, so they don't see it. So a pretty cool one, I thought. I'm not too sure if I'll get a bounty or what the bounty would be for it yet, but pretty interesting vulnerability. Anyway,
that is pretty slick.
Yeah, I might look for that on some other things as well. It seems like something which could be like a common occurrence. But anyway, this is another one, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I just thought this was quite interesting. It was a DOM XSS, which I found in CraftCMS, which is open source. So again, like if you want to do AI, like test out some of your systems, this is a good kind of tool to do it on. And yeah, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. What I'm going to do, let me just scroll down to the exploitation section. So we've got some kind of screenshots. Basically what it was, I realized that you could, the CraftCMS, if you're an admin, there's like a widget on there which will like give feedback and stuff like that. And if you type something into it, it will automatically search whatever you just typed on their GitHub issues page, and then it will load the content. So it's like, if you want to leave them feedback, it's basically automatically looking up that, to see if somebody else already done this, and then you can click on the post. But yeah, GitHub allows you to basically put XSS payloads in the GitHub issue title because they sanitize it. There's nothing to worry about, right? It's just text. But because CraftCMS loads this in, you can just create a GitHub issue, and then if somebody types in any of the words from that issue, even if you just put like the word A or something, or the word bug, somebody might type bug, then it will automatically trigger. So you'll just get the alert pop up, or if they've got a privileged session, you can do an account takeover, like get admin access. But that's only, I think with CraftCMS, you have like a privileged session for like 15 or 20 or 30 minutes or something after you log in, and then you'll need to like do your password again to do anything. So to test this anyway,
but you can do a lot in 20 minutes.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, if you can catch somebody on there quickly, like I was thinking for testing this, right? I've done this on my own GitHub. So I basically just use their source code, and I just replaced their GitHub link with my own. And then I just, because I didn't want to spam their GitHub issues with XSS payloads. I didn't want to accidentally XSS loads of admins who might be using the feedback widget. So yeah, that was the way that I tested that. And yeah, I think it was downgraded from critical to high because it only affects admins. But yeah, I mean, seems like admins are a pretty good target to aim for.
I was going to say admin is the ideal target regardless.
Yeah. So that's it anyway. And then, let me scroll down there. There's just a quick demo of it. So yeah, you can see the feedback widget in the background, and it has this post on GitHub thing. So you can just type in there. And yeah, if you just type in a keyword from the issue, there we go. XSS.
XSS, man. It's, I think when I was doing some research for, was it the end of last year or maybe it was the beginning of this year, like cross-site scripting has made a huge comeback as far as like one of the most popular vulnerabilities that are being discovered right now. I'm curious.
It's AI, right? It's AI is so good at finding XSS, and that's also the company Expo, which like did the AI agentic pen test sort of thing. They were kind of like famous for becoming number one on HackerOne US leaderboard within the space of like a year or something. But it was nearly all XSS reports that they were submitting. So that kind of goes to show you. And from my own experience, I do find SQL injections. I had an unauthenticated file read and stuff recently.
Injections are dead. We're not supposed to have those anymore.
Yeah,
in modern code.
I know. No, I found a few of them, but yeah, it's definitely XSS seems to be, for some reason, like a very common one to find with AI.
I think, as you said, AI plays a big factor into that. But what was it? Maybe 2 years ago, like deserialization vulnerabilities were like all the rave, but that was really before we had AI assistance. And like my suspicion is like there's still a lot of deserialization bugs out there, but they are slightly harder to find, and so we're getting all this low-hanging fruit with XSS, which is pumping them up as
especially with machine learning. That might have been like a reason for the increase in deserialization attacks as well, because I saw like a lot of the libraries will use like Pickle and stuff, and a lot of the deserialization is coming from there. So maybe we'll still see more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, man. Well, you got anything else for us this week?
Not this week, no.
All right, well, let's go ahead and jump into the war room. We've got a pretty awesome guest joining us today, and I'm excited to hear what he's got to say.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, welcome to the War Room segment. This is our guest segment on Hacktics and Telemetry, and we are joined by a very special guest this week. We have Cory Clark, who's the VP of Threat Operations over at SonicWall. Yeah, that guy with the beard, You may have, if you are a follower of Cory, there is a few instances where him and I have been on the same stage together. We've even been on the same webinar together before. So, Cory, I am super excited to talk to you again, and you always have some very interesting stories to tell us. So,
interesting is a good way to put it, Doug. I miss you, man. It's great to be back with you. Appreciate you for inviting me on today.
Thanks, brother. It's good to chat. And speaking of fun things I've heard, because I still follow you because you're a pretty cool dude. And I saw that where you had some story on stage about some water. What do you got going on about some water?
Gotcha. So this is my thing. And so when I'm at conferences, I like talking about it. Recently, I've been doing a lot of on stage because over at Sonic Wall, we released. So when it comes, I'll just give you the whole backstory. Threat reports.
Oh, we all love our threat reports.
I am so tired of the same threat report. I have ADHD, right? Bad ADHD, like most people in our industry, right?
Preach, brother.
Sitting there reading a threat report, it's always the same thing. And then you're like, okay, well, now I got to go look over at this company's threat report. It's the same thing. And so last year, everybody will tell you, hey, manufacturing and medical, most companies hit. Now, this is the debate I have with people. You know, I had a debate with my boss. He was like, oh, no, medical was the biggest hit. I'm like, no, it was manufacturing. Just because medical was the most impactful because of what medical does. No, if we start looking at numbers, right, and we start looking at targets, it's going to be manufacturing.
Corey, you can't, nobody wants the actual numbers. They just want whatever the headline stories are. They don't want the real numbers.
Exactly. I get that. So applauding what we did at Sonic Wall was something a little bit different. We decided to put out a cyber protect report instead of a threat report. Yes, we threw some numbers out there. Yes, it'll say manufacturing, medical, et cetera. It'll throw out all those percentages. Great. But what we did is we started focusing on something a little bit different of, okay, all these bad things have happened. They keep happening every year. Why are they happening? And then what can I do? What can I do to fix this? And we're saying the same thing we've always said, right? Yep. So like number one, right? And so, well, first, you know me, Captain Redbeard. I like to do things a little bit differently, go against the grain, say things that are a little edgy that might offend some people, right? Because then that means they're listening. Even if they're mad at me, that means they're going to listen. They're going to try to counter what I'm saying. Now we're having a conversation. Now we're talking. That's half the battle, right? So number one, and we put this against 7 deadly sins. Now, in the report, we couldn't list the 7 deadly sins because politically correctness, right? You got to be careful. As the company, they don't want to offend people. I'm good with offending people, as I said, right? But so when I go on stage, I actually call out the sins. And so for me, number one is sloth, and that is ignoring the fundamentals.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's just like sports, dude. Do you think Michael Jordan could ignore the fundamentals on the basketball court? No, man, he had to practice those every single day.
He had to go out there and shoot how many shots before a game in practice, etc. The man was amazing at shooting shots, but he had to keep practicing and practicing because that's part of the fundamentals of his job and what he has to do. Now, he could have hyper-focused, and this is number 7, which is lust, right? Of chasing the tools, for lack of example. He can go out there and he can get the next best shoe. He can get the most advanced basketball.
Would that be AI in this case?
That's part of it. But it's so for me, it's just general tools. Like you go to any of these conferences and it's like everybody's like, buy my tool. It's AI generated. It's going to save the day. Add it to your stack. Or the typical, get rid of that and come to me and spend your money with me and my tool's going to save your world. With these organizations that are already overextended, they don't have any operational efficiency. And so adding another tool they think is going to do the job for them.
Just throw money at it, Corey.
That's
just
it.
Throw money
That's
at
it. And it doesn't. And that's the problem. It doesn't. And if we just hyper-focused on the first thing, sloth, and ignoring the fundamentals, that'll solve a lot of our issues. Right? I mean, how many times have you heard Michael and I talk about MFA? Right? We're still talking about MFA.
Still talking about MFA. Or, hey,
right?
Hey, when's the last time you heard a security practitioner tell you to patch?
Well, I say it all the time. That's the easiest thing you could do. It's the cheapest thing you could do. Patch. I know you love the vulnerability world. I love the vulnerability world, right? But we're ignoring that because it's not part of our core security stack. So we're not going to do any vulnerability scanning. No. We're not going to patch. Or I had a conversation last week about our vulnerability offering, and the partner said, hey, yeah, I can't implement this at this customer because they don't want me to reboot their servers. And I'm like, okay.
That's so classic. That's classic IoT right there.
But I looked. It was an uptime of over 400 days on that server that he had in our platform. 400 days uptime. And well, first off, cheers.
Attackers love that, man.
Cheers to that server for not crashing at all. Good for it, right? So that's some good hardware. I didn't ask him the brand on the front of it, but this is a problem, right? patching. How vulnerable is that machine? It's an essential server, but we're going to ignore the fact if it gets compromised, it's so essential that I'm sure the bad guys want their hands on it.
Dude, we when I teach the exploitation class for SANS, we talk about something called DTP, Dynamic Trunking Protocol, which is a protocol that Cisco has that's pretty much like it's not a bug, it's a feature type thing. And Cisco finally at some point decided, okay, we won't turn it on by default because attackers are leveraging the poop out of this thing, right? Mm-hmm. But here's the thing, to your point, nobody reboots their Cisco core switches to change the configuration. So the thing is still around. Like, we still see this in like 30 or 40% of pen tests. It's absolutely ridiculous. We're talking about technology that's almost 20 years old at this point that we can still, and that's what, to your point, right? Like, you're talking about 400 days or whatever, a server not even being rebooted.
This is the problem. Now, and I'm going to get to the liquid diff story, but just come on my ADHD journey with me,
all right,
please.
Let's go.
So ignoring the fundamentals. Second for me is pride, false confidence. Hey, we're good.
I hear everyone else getting tacked, but I can't get tacked.
Not us.
Not me. I'm rock solid.
Either I'm too small or I'm too large and we're good. Everything's patched. Everything's good. Our security stack's amazing.
My dashboard is all greens.
Yeah. Insert
Cory.
this sock. We have this sock, and our sock's going to help us if we get attacked, usually after the fact, after you've already been compromised. The sock's aware that you're getting ransom. Sorry, bad day. Anyways, right? So they have that false confidence of what's going on, or they have the tools, or my favorites. Hey, I have Jim. Okay, you have Jim. Okay. Hey, you need to get off SSL VPN. It's too vulnerable. It's too easy to be compromised, right? You need to get off SSL. No, I'm good. I got Jim. Well, who the hell's Jim? Oh, Jim's my CCNA. He's been doing firewalls for years and years and years, decades, right? Like he's the man in firewalls. Okay, so Jim, and he's configuring all your different firewalls. You're still using SSL VPN. You did get hit by Akira, and then when I looked at it, you're using a domain admin bind account on that one firewall, so more than likely Jim did the same thing on all these other firewalls, but you got Jim. And Jim
is going to patch those 0 days that they don't even know about in the SSL firewall that come out, like, I don't know, FortiBleed that we just talked about, or whatever the latest SSL VPN vulnerabilities of the day. But it's okay. Jim's got it.
Jim's got it. So that's that pride. That's that false confidence, right? And it comes in different flavors, right?
By the way, if you're watching and your name's Jim, we do not in any mean have any disrespect to you.
I blame you, Jim.
Thanks for watching the podcast.
CCNA, Jim, and you're not even using Cisco, but you're going to promote your CCNA, Jim, I don't like you. I'm sorry. All right. Overexposed access, right? I call that gluttony, right? Where, again, we're just allowing access to anything because access is important. Our people need to work. And this is, again, a problem with SSL VPN in general. It gives you access to the whole office. Just go wherever you want in there, right? Screw zero trust. I don't want that. I just need the easy VPN. Just
don't make it hard. People don't work if you make it hard, Cory.
No,
come on, no.
Not at all. Not at all. Then you start looking at reactive postures, right? So we're not testing anything we have. Again, it goes into that false confidence as well, right? Where we're just reacting when things happen and we'll plug it as it happens. If we get compromised, we get compromised and we'll just plug it then. Again, we don't need any of that zero trust stuff. Screw that. Our employees can be admins on their machine. Who cares? Then we get into cost-driven decisions, and this is my favorite as well, right? So I wear many hats, right? While I'm on the SOC side, I'm also a sales guy. I'm also everything, right? Like most people do, and so it's always about money.
Always.
And it's always about, well, they're a lot cheaper than you. Okay. And so I like getting on stage, besides the liquid death story, I like getting on stage with talking about cross-driven security decisions. I'm like, okay, who here has bought a vehicle in the last 6 months? And people raise their hands, and the closest person I pick on them. I'm like, okay, so you showed up to the car dealership, and you're like, hey, sell me the cheapest car you have on the slot. Is that what you did? And of course, the answer is like, no. Well, why not? Because you're going to buy a car, and you're cost conscious. And so why wouldn't you just say, buy me the cheapest car? Well, because I want more safety. I want more features. I want to, okay. So why are you treating your decision to buy a car this way, but not your decision to buy security products or solutions this way?
Best value, right?
Yeah. You want the cheapest solutions when it comes to your security stack, but it's going to cost you a lot more when you get compromised. So this doesn't make sense to me, and this goes into greed, right? That's the sin I associate with this one. And then, then we talk about legacy access models. And then again, I end it with lust, where again, we're chasing the tools. we're falling into this rut of every company, and this next tool is going to help me, and this next tool is going to help me. And, the CEOs are making these decisions, and their engineers are over here just drowning like, help, I don't know, it's good enough, right? Here, I'll just configure this how I configure it. This is the problem. Now, I get on stage and I talk about that story. See, I'm coming full circle. I'm going to talk about my buddies at Liquid Death, right? So I learned the story about Liquid Death, and it really resonated with me. I'm an emotional guy. What can I say? You can tell that by looking at my face, right? So how Liquid Death started. So this story has changed over time because how the story was told to me is different than actually my research on how it actually happened. So I'll give you the most truth story. So there was this guy. He's a marketer. And he used to work for Netflix, marketing Netflix, etc. He liked to go to concerts. So he was at a Vans Warped Tour. I don't know if you've ever been to one. I've been to quite a few of those, right? And he started noticing all of the marketing was around booze or energy drinks. He's like, okay. And then he sees people on stage drinking, but he noticed a lot of people were drinking water, not booze or energy drinks. And he's like, well, what's wrong with water? Why can't we market that? Why can't we promote that? Well, because there's nothing sexy about water. Let's be honest.
Cool. Yeah, it's not cool.
And so what he found was like people, you see it like if you watch MMA, you'll see people at the end that have like these big monster bottles, but there's actually just water in it. They're not drinking Monster after a fight. They're drinking water.
They're probably getting paid to use that bottle, though.
Exactly. They're just holding it up like, I had my Monster before this fight, and boom, $1 million right there just for them. Awesome. So this guy was like, you know what? No one's really doing this. Let me make water sexy again. So he's like, okay. He was at the Vans Warped Tour, and he got a can of water, and it had all the cool Vans logos. Like, you've seen them, right? Like, a bunch of just random things, like some guy's random tattoo sleeve that has a bunch of randomness on it, right? Awesome. He's like, you know what? This is a great idea. What I can do is, first off, I need, what's it going to be called? Liquid Death, right? That's sexy, right? Especially for people in the Vans Warped Tour area. Liquid Death. And then I need a logo, and let's see if it shows it, right? So he's got this skull.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know what? Well, let's do presentation. This looks like a beer can. Does it not?
Or a Monster energy drink, like the same.
I wonder how many people have accidentally bought that water, thinking, not even reading it, and just thinking, oh, that looks like a nice beer.
I didn't buy it because of that. For a long time, I just thought this was either a beer or an energy drink, and I'm like, Liquid Death. I'm getting old. Right, I put all those chemicals in me long ago. I'm scared to do it now. Or I got kids that need me, wife that needs me. Screw that. And so, okay, he made it look like a beer can. My son loves walking around middle school with one of these because he feels like, oh, I got a beer can. Oh, now everybody knows what Liquid Death is, right? And then, okay, well, I need some type of branding around this. So he's like, okay, death to plastic, Liquid Death, death to plastic. You're bringing in all the people that are worried about, killing turtles and stuff, right? Yeah. Death to plastic. Yes, let's go. And he's like, well, maybe people don't care about that. Death to thirst. Hell yeah. This man made $1 billion company. If you look at it, it's worth over $1 billion. $1 billion company by putting water in a can.
It's amazing.
Obviously, I dive way too deep into these things in my head. So I'm like, this guy didn't create the next revolutionary thing, right? He didn't create the next electric car, the next AI tool solution. He just put water in a can. But he made $1 billion company simply by marketing it the correct way. So one, individuals can look at this. And I talk to a lot of people. And one thing that I love in my career is hiring entry-level people. Because this job market sucks.
It's awful.
You can't tell me anything different. This job market sucks.
It's awful right now.
Now, albeit, and it's a different conversation, cybersecurity sucks. I'm ready to start a goat farm, right? This is the most stressful job you can have, right? But in general, the job market sucks, and getting into this in this market is tough. So that's something I take pride in. Is I love hiring entry-level people, right? And help grow them to a point and watching them do their thing, right?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I love doing mentorship. That's why I like teaching for SANS. Like, I love that part.
In the end, we're all building our own brand.
Yeah.
Right? Who is Cory Clark? Who is Douglas McKee? Right? And you have to build your brand in general to have any type of recognition or understanding, or even people to listen to you. Yeah. And it doesn't come by, you don't have to create the next general thing. You just have to market yourself properly.
Well, I teach people all the time because especially in this field, we're plagued with really, really smart people that don't know how to communicate, right? And it's like part of what I've taught in several classes, we have whole sections on like how to write reports. And nobody wants to like learn about documentation or writing reports or any of that stuff because it's not sexy. But I have to keep reminding people, I said, you can be the smartest or the biggest badass hacker in the world. And if you can't communicate the value that you're providing to someone, it doesn't matter. Like you're not going to get a job. You're not going to get paid for what you could be doing the right thing. But to your point, right? Like you have to be able to communicate the value. You're saying marketing, brand, very similar overlap there.
Yeah. And then same with businesses, right?
Yep.
Look at the MSP world. MSPs have a lot of competition with other MSPs, with large organizations. I mean, you start looking at something I've been hyper focused on is now you have cyber insurance companies buying out MDR companies to provide services now because just paying ransom, right? And just having insurance revenue coming in isn't enough. So now they're trying to kind of be that one-stop shop like a lot of organizations are doing. And so they're kind of infringing on the MSP's world that says, hey, I'll lower your insurance costs if you take my MDR offering, right?
Yeah, well, it's also a safety net for them a little bit because they should know the standards in which the security is being configured. And that's the thing that insurance is getting burned on in the beginning. It's way come back now over the last several years. But it used to be like, oh, I don't need security. I've got insurance. So they've had to walk that back a little bit.
But my point is there's a lot of competition out there.
Yeah.
And so how are you going to separate yourself, small MSP out of Idaho, right? How are you going to separate yourself? Well, again, you don't have to generate and create the next best tool out. A lot of it has to come with how you're marketing yourself. How are you branding yourself? Are you locking people into a 3-year contract, even though your product or your services, your solution sucks? Or are you branding yourself saying, hey, we're confident in what we do. We're month to month with no contracts. If we fail you, you have the ability to leave us. To me, that goes a lot longer way than just locking into a 3-year contract, right? So there's some intangibles that go, but it's all about building your brand. And so that's what, when I finished with all of this, running my mouth and going in many different rabbit holes, I walk off stage. I was like, so with all of my ramblings, the one thing I want to ask you and for you to think about, not give me the answer, is how are you putting water in a can?
And next week, ladies and gentlemen, when Cory Clark joins us, he'll be joining us as the CMO of whatever company he's working for next.
Let's go. Maybe Liquid Death. Who knows? I got to reach out to them. Death to the vulnerabilities. Let's go.
Let's go. Dude, that's an amazing story. I think that's a great presentation you have there, and I'll bet you it resonates with a lot of people, including the whole car analogy that you did. So thanks for sharing that with us. That's absolutely fantastic. Pivoting just a little bit, I'm really curious your take on this. So I wanted to bring this up just because you are in the thick of it with ransomware day in and day out, and what you see with everybody. Did you? And I'm putting you a little bit on the spot. So if you haven't checked it out, don't worry about it. We can move on to something else. But there was a story that dropped a couple days ago about a ransomware negotiator that was actually working for 5 U.S. companies, but he was actually on the ransomware gang was it Black Cat? I think that's what it was on their payroll.
Yeah, Black Cat.
Have you seen this story? Like
I have because it's like watching a movie, right?
It's
a better hacker movie than what Hollywood actually does, right? Yeah. So the guy worked at Digital Mint. Then he had some co-conspirators he was working with. I saw he got 6 years. I think that was recent, wasn't it?
I actually don't think I saw the sentence, but
yeah, he got 6 years, and his co-conspirators got 4 years each. So there's 3 total guys, is my understanding. And the main guy, his name was Angelo, right? So Angelo, he was working both sides, and so this is easy to do, right?
Exactly.
This is the scary part of how easy this is due, not just in his situation, but I've seen this where, I'm heavily focused on MSPs, obviously, of who we go with and work with and how I help defend. But internal attacks, right? Someone within the MSP selling that level of access to all of their customers out to these adversary groups. And I've seen it happen. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen some of the people we were monitoring, right? Find this. You have companies like Huntress that released this big article. How many years ago was that? Where they kind of dove in with it. They were talking to the guy online who was trying to sell the information because he got fired from the MSP, and so he's like, "Screw this place! I'm giving out all the access. Let's go." It's scary, but it's super interesting to me.
I think so too.
And so this guy, just to kind of continue with the story, is my understanding is this guy was out there. He was working with these ransomware groups on, lowering the amount of cost, but he was also working with these companies that were compromised, understanding and knowing how much their insurance would pay out. So he was getting that information over to say, hey, it'll pay 26 million. So ask for 25.1 and they'll pay it, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
And so he got more time because he was working both sides of the fence. My understanding is the other two guys got 2 less years because they were just working on the adversary side, right? The black hat side. They weren't doing the negotiations, right? But they just were all together. They bought the ransomware as a service and were out there deploying it to people that were entrusting in them.
Yeah. So here's my question to you. Like, one of the things that we like to do on this podcast is talk about like what is like a mitigation, or what is, and I'm bleeding a little bit into our next segment, but that's okay. I've got you here now. Like, how do you approach this type of a trust issue for these organizations? As you said, it's so easy to do, right? So is this a policy thing? Is this a like, don't overextend access to your
It goes into that extended access. And I've had these conversations internally, especially. So I've had people that came from other organizations, right, come over to work, same company I work for, and they want access to this, and this. Like, they're a salesperson, and they want full access into our XDR platform to see all the customer data. They want access into all our Sentinel-1 consoles, our CrowdStrike consoles. Like, they want access to everything that they don't need access to. And so my answer is always no.
This is the whole least privilege concept, by the way.
Least privilege,
fundamental that we've been talking about for 2 decades.
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, sin number 1, right?
Yeah.
The fundamentals. Yes. So when we were an MSSP, and Michael, obviously, right? Michael was the CEO of the company. When I first came to work there, he had access. He was doing firewall tickets. He had admin access in everybody's firewalls.
For our viewers that probably don't know, Cory, right? You're talking about Solutions Granite, right?
Solutions Granite, correct. So we were acquired by SonicWall a little over 2 years ago. And so it was a 19-year MSSP, but I started working there 11 or 12 years ago. I've lost track of time, dude. I don't know.
Time flies, dude.
Time does fly, right? A long time ago. But when I came on, so Michael, the CEO, had access to everything, was doing everything, domain admin access, everything you can think of. And so we got to a point where it's like, dude, you don't need, and we're small enough, I can call the CEO dude. Dude, you don't need access, that level of access. You just need to do the CEO thing. Go out there and sell stuff for the company. Go out there and just be a CEO. Let your senior guys do what we need to do, because you're going to be one of the most targeted people. In an organization, my opinion is the most targeted person is first the CFO, second the CEO, right? And so they need to have the least amount of access to anything. And just having a general least privilege philosophy or methodology within your organization will reduce that amount of blast radius that's going to hit you. And so that's how every organization should function. I'd have to really just sit here and kind of hash it out of how would that really work? Like, could someone like Angelo, that's a negotiator would that have prevented this? But
it's tough.
Yeah.
Because, as a negotiator, you do need access to certain things.
Yeah.
Right? And even if you follow least privilege, is that limit, and you do the best you can to narrow it down, would that have been enough to accomplish it? I don't know. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that that would solve all the problems.
But use the example of that MSP, right? Where the guy was out there, he got fired from the MSP, he was trying to sell access. So in there shows the issue. I've seen so many organizations that don't have proper internal processes that when someone leaves, what happens to that account?
I've seen the same thing, yeah.
I had to deal with a ransomware incident. We were looking at the firewall. There was VPN. And then he's like, everybody has MFA. And so again, that's kind of the false confidence that MFA is going to solve everything. It's a hurdle, and it's an important hurdle. Don't get me wrong, right? But he's like, everybody has MFA. There's no way they could have got in. And then so I'm like, all right, do me a favor, show me this account. And it was the account that was used, right, to perform the compromise. And he's like, oh, well, yeah, okay. That's an old account. This guy hasn't been here in 2 years, and he's the only one without MFA. So on the VPN, this one account, a guy that hasn't been there in 2 years, didn't have MFA enabled. He was still a domain admin in that organization, and he hasn't been there in over 2 years.
Yeah. Tech debt, man. Bites you every time.
That's it.
Bites you every time.
And then, so I got off my hill. I stand on many hills, and you know this about me. So I was on a hill for a while, just yelling about stuff like enterprise admin and schema admin. Those groups should be empty, right? No one looks at those groups, usually. I think most system admins that might be listening don't even know what an enterprise admin or a schema admin is within an organization, right? In Active Directory, right, you have those two roles that are meant for exactly what they say. If you're updating the forest, right? I haven't done this in a long time. If I'm trying to bring my old system admin,
I was going to say, now we're getting deep.
Yeah, if you're updating forest, if you're updating Exchange, Lord forbid you're updating
on-prem Exchange.
Yeah,
come
it's
on,
still
now.
out
Come
there.
on now.
I still ask that question when I talk about the 7 deadly sins and I talk about legacy systems. I ask the question: who here is still supporting Microsoft Exchange on-prem? And then you always see like one guy that's like,
yeah.
And then you realize there's no one else is raising their hand. He's like, no, I'm good. I'm sorry, I misheard you. I thought you said something else. I thought you said Entra.
Yeah.
No, there's still Exchange out there, right? And so if you're updating that, then yes, you need to be in that group. But those groups should always remain empty until you need to do any type of schema work, right? Then you add someone in there, do your project. Hello, change control. Everyone ever heard of change control, right?
Yeah.
Then you go in there and then you do what you got to do. Update your forest. Update
and then hold
your
on, here's the kicker. And then you take them out of
and
the
then
group.
you pull it out.
Whoa.
And then you have someone monitoring it. If anybody's added to those groups, guess what? You get alerted on it. Is this expected or not expected? I love routing out admins. That was my funniest thing. Again, I'm going down another rabbit hole. I apologize, Doug.
No.
So I was in the Marine Corps for 8 years. And then, so I started my whole cybersecurity journey then they shipped me over to Japan and they put me in what's called information assurance, which is my understanding is cybersecurity now, right? It's just old school. I'm dating myself, right? And so my job over there was to monitor everything that these Marines were doing on their computers. And so basically my job was routing out my fellow Marines. And
they
so
love that. Marines love that.
They love it. They would absolutely love it. And so when I left, right, when I got PCS'd over back to Virginia, my platoon got me a plaque, and it says, I have it in storage. I have to go find it. Like routing out the ones that you're closest to, or something like that. That was funny. But I love routing out admins now because they're doing the stupidest stuff. They're doing the stupidest thing. Let me just go ahead. Let me just add myself to this domain admin, or this enterprise admin, just because I might need it later. Or Lord forbid, I told everybody stop using the default built-in administrator in a domain. You should have separate accounts for everybody. And I challenge you to disable that default admin account that comes with your domain, and only re-enable it when you need to do something like schema updates, etc. Everyone's like, nah, it's not possible. Okay, try it. BS. Just because you did bad implementations and that domain or that default domain admin's running as services across all your servers, it means you did it wrong. You should go back in and clean it up.
Yep. Wise words right there. Wise words. Absolutely.
Sorry, rabbit holes. I forgot where we were going with this one, but yes.
No, that's okay. It was good. So we've got one topic left that we should talk about because we have to. It's 2026.
Okay.
Jonah, what questions you got for Cory on the infamous AI?
Yeah, so I was wondering, I mean, we track quite closely like the frontier models, the new like GPT or Claude models that come out.
5.6 just came out for OpenAI, didn't they? Like literally yesterday or something?
Yeah. I saw that. I think you need to get like the max subscription to get the latest model. So
that's too
it's
rich
just paying that $20 a month doesn't go anywhere anymore.
No.
I learned that one.
I mean, we track it anyway. We see all this research coming out with all the graphs of like, it finds this many more vulnerabilities, with this many tokens. I'm just wondering on the blue team side, on the SOC, I never really see anything. I never really see like articles of like, the new Fable model. Fable model probably doesn't do anything cybersecurity related for you, but in general, I'm just wondering like, what do you see a lot of changes in how it feel like day-to-day work? And
I've had a lot of these conversations, right? What was the project name for Claude?
Mythos?
What was it? What'd you say it was?
Mythos is a model. Did they have a...
Oh, Glasswing. Are you talking about Glasswing?
Glasswing.
I think Glasswing was it, yes.
Yeah,
so obviously a lot of our executives like, what are we going to do? We got to address this. We got to put out articles about this. We got to talk about this. If you don't, we're looking like we're not staying relevant. The more and more I dove into it, it's all goes back to what we've been doing and doing it right. From a defense side, and this is my opinion, I didn't see anything that we need to do different. Now, with the exception, we need to speed up what we're doing. We can't put off this project that we were waiting on for next year, waiting on the budget, et cetera, because things are coming in more rapidly now. And we have to respond more rapidly now. And this is the tough part of any like new SOC analyst coming in that I always have to explain to them is, a adversary has to be right once and you're screwed. You as an analyst have to be right every single time. And if you don't, you're screwed. Right. So everything that we're doing from a detection methodology, right? So we start looking at, TTPs are the same. It's just we have to do it at a almost larger scale and at a quicker experience. So it's kind of like fighting AI with AI. And so you start looking at the speed it takes to do any type of investigation and the amount of correlation that has to happen. Because that's, in my opinion, the hardest thing that we have to do on our side, on the defense side, is the ability to quickly correlate different levels of telemetry. And I get on that hill and I start talking about, okay, for any SOC to really be effective, we need 3 levels of telemetry. We need endpoint, cloud, and network, right? Because that will account for all the different, attack surfaces that are going to be hit and goes through the whole root cause analysis of, well, how did they get in? What did they touch? Did they exfiltrate data, et cetera, et cetera? And I kind of walk through this easy scenario of, okay, the first indicator of a SOC was Mimikatz was quarantined on a server at 2 a.m. Any SOC will know that's malicious. No one's up doing that. Cool. We've isolated that. And I could do my job. I can go to you, the customer, and say, hey, adversary's on your server. Here's the name. It was blocked, but they're still on there. Fix it. Right? Get them out, kill access to that account, and give them all the remediation recommendations. But if I have to stop there, I'm missing so much more. I'm not painting a clearer picture, because if I was able to go back and look at your firewall data and say, hey, I'm seeing an outbyte anomaly going out your firewall in the last 5 minutes coming from that same source IP that we saw Mimikatz, guess what? That's examples of potential exfiltration. Unfortunately, firewalls suck when it comes to detailed logging, so I can't tell you exactly what it was, right? But now what I'm doing is I'm doing correlation to say, hey, yes, there appears to be exfiltration that's occurring. Now I can also look at, was that account coming in through a VPN? Because that tells me entry point. If I think about someone breaking into my house, I want to know, how do they get into my house? What's the entry point? And that's going to help me when it comes to remediation to figure out what do I need to do to patch that hole so they don't come in the same entry point. So if it was a VPN, okay, here's the account. Now, if I can pivot over to the cloud, well, how are most credentials getting compromised? Still phishing emails, right? Still people falling for it. I'm still seeing a bunch of click fix compromises. Hey, Control V, hit Windows R, then Control V. And why people fall for that, I don't know, right? But this is what we're doing, is we're giving up our credentials, which means then they're pivoting over to something like the VPN, because your 365 credentials more than likely are going to be the same credentials as your VPN credentials. That gives them an entry point. Once they get in, what level of access does that person have? Now I can go in and get on your servers because that person's domain admin, even though he hasn't been there for 2 years, and then boom, boom, boom. So you can work your way both directions, right? So this is happening. That ability to correlate, we need to get quicker. And so this is where you see defense, blue teams were kind of fighting fire with fire, where, what an AI-based platform, integrating that into a security operations center significantly increases that ability for us to do some type of correlation and speed up the investigation. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things that I like to remind people is it seems like we only ever talk about AI in the context of offense. And AI is just as readily available to defense as it is offense. And as you're saying, it does help speed up like the correlation. It does help analysis. And like blue teamers are using that just as much. It just doesn't make the news because let's go back to your liquid death analysis. It's not as sexy as the attackers are using AI.
Nothing sexy about it. And it's expensive. It's very, very expensive, and that's why a lot of organizations don't do it. But
something else you said caught my attention towards the beginning of your conversation there, which was the whole, and this has been a mantra in the industry for decades at this point, but it was the whole like attackers only have to be right once and the blue team has to be right every single time. I'll push back on that just a little bit, because if you think about from an offensive perspective, right? Okay, I'm right once to get that entry point, but then if I deploy Mimikatz using your example and you detect me, then I'm out, right? Like I got to be right again to not. And if a blue team has a good, well deployed SOC program, like I know if Cory Clark's watching the network, then I've got to be dang perfect, or he's going to yank me out of it. Right. So it's a little bit, it's on both sides too. I think the blue teams have done a better and better job. The technology is there. And if you follow the fundamentals like you're talking about, then I, as an attacker, also have to be right every single step of the way, or I'm going to step on a landmine that you've set up for me.
Yes, but it's a consistent moving target.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you like watch my webinars from like 5 years ago, I would tell you, okay, here's what the adversaries are doing. What they're doing is they're treading lightly. They're coming in and doing a low and slow attack. They're getting access and then they're waiting. Then they're coming in and they're sophisticated enough. Most of them are sophisticated enough to know how to go in and not trigger any of your systems. They're validating your security stack.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
There is no safety in, a lot of your security stack, because they're going to easily be able to go in there and identify what that is. And if they didn't already set off any alarms, because you're not even feeding enough telemetry to whoever's monitoring your stuff, if you have someone monitoring your stuff, they're going to go in and they're going to start picking apart what you have from your security stack to kind of figure out, okay, well, how do I bypass this? Or what can I do to kind of not get under the radar until I'm ready to detonate that bigger boom. And if I get caught, I get caught, but I have all this other stuff, right? I slowly exfiltrated your data. So it's tough compared to now, where you have, like, I have to talk about Akira because they're just huge in the last, 2 years. And Akira, they get in. They are highly sophisticated when it comes to firewalls. They're exploiting these bind accounts because it goes into that VPN. They're targeting VPNs. They're just doing a spray and pray on different ports, using something like Shodan to identify, okay, who's using a Sonic Wall, who's using a Fortinet, et cetera, right? And then so they've educated themselves enough to know, okay, if I can get in, or if I had these admin ports exposed, what vulnerabilities can I use, or how can I exploit that to identify the bind account? Because most organizations are using a bind account. They're using Active Directory, right, to say, hey, here's C. Clark, here's his password. When he logs in the VPN, is that correct? That's what that bind account does. It validates authentication. So what these typical system admins are doing is they're just making it a domain admin because it's easy. I'll tell you, of the compromises that I've seen from Akira, I'd say 19 out of 20 had a domain admin as their bind account, that Akira was able to compromise that to be able to pivot in, log in as that account, log in as a domain admin. So now they have full reign within the environment, right? And so this is the problem that we're facing with, is we have these very smart adversary groups that know how to target these firewalls. And then once they get into your environment, they already know how to I've seen them bypass Sentinel-1 within seconds, CrowdStrike within seconds, all of these different, your prevention technologies within seconds. And this is where I've pivoted. 10 years ago, I was always leading with prevention tool. We need to focus on prevention, detection second. I've changed. Yeah. Right? Detection is important because these prevention tools are consistently failing. And you know, my favorite example is the front door to my house. Yeah. I have a front door. It's a metal door, right? I upgraded it. I have a deadbolt on it. I'm not going to put 20 deadbolts on it because you can't do that. No one's going to lock them all. I'll do it once and then only do one of them, right? So cool. So I have a metal door. I have a deadbolt that's supposed to keep the bad guys out. Is that always going to work? No. Because someone with enough capability, enough weight to them, enough muscle, a better tool can come in and just bust right through my door. So what I did was, now I've also have cameras pointed at every single entry point to my house. This goes back to my military days too, right? Cameras are pointed at every single entry point to my house. Is that going to stop someone from coming in? No. But what it does is it gives me a detection capability. It tells me someone is walking up to your door, which gives me the ability to respond a lot quicker before my prevention fails, because it's easy for any of these prevention tools to fail. It's all about the detection and the capability of being able to respond quick enough before your prevention fails. And that's what a lot of organizations are missing right now.
No, you're spot on, Cory. It's always great having a conversation with you about this stuff and hearing what the latest and greatest is. We are running out of time though, so I'm gonna cut you short there. And thank you, of course, for taking the time to join us on this podcast. I'd love to have you back sometime if you're ever willing to do it. And if you have any last words of wisdom for our viewers,
I just want you to think about it yourself. How are you putting water in a can?
There it is. All right, Cory. Thanks so much for your time, and we'll catch you next time.
Cheers. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Cory.
All right, here we are in the Mitigation Minute, where we review things that we talked about in the other two segments and really focus on what can you do as an organization to help prepare yourself for the inevitable. Effectively, these are different attacks happening in the industry, always changing. And we've got some interesting ones this week because some of them are quite challenging in the way that you would approach as an organization. And then, of course, talking to Cory, he brought up some really interesting points that really, to be fair, aren't challenging. Those are things that we've been talking about for decades at a time as far as, helping prevent real-time attacks. So kind of starting at the beginning, Jonah, we talked a little bit about NPM packages and some of the threats there. And you had brought up an article that I had talked about on the Monday brief where Injective Labs GitHub got compromised, right? And they use that to push illegitimate code, malicious code. And what's interesting is the challenge there obviously is you're coming from a trusted repository, but if we're honest about this isn't new. Like, this is the same style of attack that we saw with the famous SolarWinds, right? Where effectively a vendor is breached and that breach allows malicious code to be pushed. This is a classic, what I call breach-based supply chain attack. And I talk about these in the context of product security testing pretty often when I'm out talking for SANS or teaching. And one of the things that we talk about is a prevention. You're never going to prevent the other company from getting hacked. Right. Regardless of what you do, you could not prevent Injective Labs' GitHub project from getting hacked. Right. And you're in a position where you're trusting them as a vendor or an open source project. So what can you do? The best thing there, in my opinion, and what we've seen work, and I'll go out, and I'll just say up front, right, this is a challenging thing to accomplish, and it does take investment and time. So there is a time trade-off. But understanding the product or the package being downloaded or being used in your environment, so that way you can spot anomalies, is really the best way to approach this, in my opinion. Now, again, it requires you to understand what that update package looks like, and it requires you to potentially write some detections on if that package has changed. Simple thing. Now,
just to interject there, I wonder how many companies are actually doing this already, because I was just thinking that I do something similar, right, with vulnerability research and using AI. Whenever a new version of like some open source software comes out, patch diff it and see like, have they introduced any vulnerabilities? Absolutely. Have they regressed any vulnerabilities? I wonder how many companies are doing that from a defensive point of view, or maybe they will start to do it in future.
I think there are I think a lot of and this is just Doug's opinion, I think there are some definitely bigger companies that do that. For example, like when I worked for the government, I know that they put a decent amount of effort into that type of thing. I think that, like, to be real about it, I think the challenge is a resource challenge for most companies. Do we have the manpower and time to put into this? Think of how many packages and how many products a company uses on a regular basis. Like, I'm just being transparent. Like, that's a challenge. So one of the things that often I talk about in that vein is, well, you're not going to be able to do everything. You got to reduce your scope, and you need to target the most critical things within your infrastructure, right? And when you look at supply chain attacks, even things like NIST and CISA have put out guidance on what is likely to be targeted from a supply chain attack perspective. And there's two things to look for to help you prioritize what you should be analyzing from a supply chain attack perspective. And what we come back with is, one is systems that beacon out frequently. So things that go back out to a vendor or go back out for updates on a frequent basis. And then the second for that is systems that have high privileged access within your organization. And so if you take that cross section, one of the things that I've talked about before is using things like Ping Castle, for example, or Bloodhound to understand where you have AD trust, like over trust and AD relationships, using net flow traffic to understand what's leaving your organization on a regular basis, and then really coupling that finally with understanding what are your business critical applications in your environment. And I like to think of that as like a Venn diagram. If you look at what software falls into that trifecta of areas, and that's what you focus on validating updates for, right? That is a good step as far as prevention for supply chain attacks, on, being super attentive to those packages and changes. And also, it's not a one size fits all. There are some like when PasswordSafe got compromised back, I don't remember the year, but it was like, I think, late or early 2020s, or like somewhere in that ballpark. When they got compromised, they included an entire new, like those threat actors included an entire new DLL in that update package, right? Like simply just saying, wait a second here, this DLL was not here yesterday and it's here now. Maybe I should wait on installing this at least 24 hours and take a look at this update. Like small things like that are going to put put you in a better position from a defensive perspective. But anyway, I got on a soapbox there, but that's my long version of like how to approach supply chain attacks and packages. Any last thoughts there?
No, I mean, I have some thoughts from the Situation Room, from some of the articles I covered. I think the WordPress one is fairly easy. Like if the the sites that were targeted kept their WordPress plugins up to date, they would have avoided that. There's a tool called WP Scan, which I used to use for like pen testing, like Hack the Box and stuff. And yeah, I mean, you can obviously see if stuff's up to date, but you can also look at like misconfigured plugins and things like that. So some quick options for that one. I think for the GitHub one, it was CraftCMS, right, that the vulnerability was in. But I was thinking about that in like, if you're looking to like sanitize excess bugs, you're going to first of all look at where all the user input is coming from, right? And if the attack isn't actually coming directly from user input, if you've got like the second order injection where the injection goes on to a safe site, GitHub, which is not vulnerable, and then later gets passed to CraftCMS, then something like that could get missed. So I guess a tip there is just to not only look at the data that's coming from the user, who obviously we don't trust, but also look at what's coming from, I mean, like we were talking about there with the GitHub repo as well, getting compromised, right? Don't put all of your trust in any data that's coming from a third party.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the perfect concept where we talk about zero trust mentality, right? When we're thinking about mitigations, and a lot of this actually dovetails nicely into what Cory was talking about in our guest segment. I mean, he kind of brought back that a lot of these things can be mitigated just by doing the fundamentals. And he talked about, I'm not going to recover like all 7 of his deadly sins, as he called them, but a couple things that stand out that actually correlate really well with both cross-site scripting and with the NPM stuff, in my opinion, would be things like at least he talks about ruthless least privilege. For example, right? And talking about the fact that detection is almost more important than prevention, because a lot of these things that we're talking about, they're very hard to prevent in your environment because of the way that they're constructed. So really flipping that and saying, okay, yes, I'm going to put these items in for prevention, but I need to focus my efforts on making sure that my detection stack is pretty strong. Knowing with the not having he talks about pride, right? Not having too much pride and understanding that I'm going to get compromised at some point in time. So where am I at in my ability to detect it quickly and then to validate that? So a couple things there. He talks about least privilege. Again, boring to talk about because we've been talking about this for 2 decades, but it's still something that he's actively seeing as a problem on a regular basis. We talk about cleaning up accounts that are stale or not being used. Another thing that like our IR team as well here at Rapid7 is continuing to see when they're responding to an event to our customers is, hey man, when you terminate an employee, you need to get rid of those accounts quickly, right? If you don't need domain admin, permissions, you need to be getting rid of those for different employees. So really simple stuff that is not sexy, right? As he talked about putting water in a can and what that takes, but is definitely was going to help you with your prevention and then really focusing on your detection stack there. So anything to add to that, Jonah?
Nope. I think there are some good tips.
All right, well, fantastic. I think we're ready to wrap up another fantastic episode of Hacktics and Telemetry. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Please, if you can, like and subscribe. That helps us understand what you're interested in. Please comment below and let us know things that you want to talk about. If you want to be a guest, reach out to us. We'd love to have you on the podcast.
Or if you want to see a guest on here, just somebody you really want to see interviewed, you haven't seen.
Yeah, if you want to see a guest, maybe we can publicly shame them into joining the podcast. So drop that in the comments as well. And until next time.